Today, we're going to be learning about an artist by the name of Wasily Kandinsky. He was born in Russia in 1866, and he started his work surrounding around the type of artwork called abstract. And it's not something when it's abstract that you can recognize. He used a lot of lines and shapes and colors to create his paintings with a lot of energy. So you can see on here are some examples of his work, and I have a video that we're going to watch about his work. Kandinsky, as you can see, if you look at his artwork, there's a lot of shapes and colors and lines in his pieces. These are some of the ones that he's really known for. When he created his artwork, he actually started painting later in his life. He had started off as a lawyer, and he took a risk with going into painting as his career. What you'll notice or learn about him is he actually listened to classical music while he painted. So as you look through his pictures, I'm going to have us listen to a little bit of classical music, and you'll be able to hear and feel some of the brushstrokes and maybe see some of the music incorporated in his paintings here. So today we are going to be creating a Kandinsky-like painting, and we're going to be using it on a big piece of white paper. We're going to be using shapes where I'm going to teach you how we're going to overlap some shapes, add in some lines, and finally color. So grab your paper, pencils, and markers and watercolors if you have them, and let's get started. This is an example of what we are going to create today. You're going to choose a shape. Here I chose a square, and then we're going to add in a few different types of lines, wiggly lines, wavy lines, and go in and add in some color, just like Kandinsky did. To show you how I started with another one, here's one that I haven't finished coloring in, but I added in some of my shapes and some of my lines. Here's another example of starting. So I added in 3 circle shapes, and then I added in 3 different types of lines. I did a wavy line, I did a zigzag line, and then I did a nice diagonal line. So what we're going to use today is our large piece of paper. And I would like you to use, if you don't have a permanent marker in front of you, you can use a crayon. Doesn't matter if it's a black crayon, it could be any color crayon that you have, because we're going to be using paints on here. And if we're using regular marker, then it's going to spread all over. But if you use a permanent marker or a crayon, it won't. So the first thing I want you to do is to think of a shape that you want to use a few times. So I might choose for my shape today, I'm going to use a heart. And you want to make these rather big. So I'm going to make a heart in this shape, like that. And now I'm going to make another one down here. what I want you to practice is something also called overlapping. And overlapping is when you put one object on top of another object or a drawing of a shape. So I'm going to place, you can have it where it's see-through or not see-through. So here is my overlapping where I just draw another heart, overlapping on top of this one. You could also make it a little bit secret-like and have it coming from behind, but you don't see the whole shape. So I want you to maybe add 4 or 5 of your shapes on your paper, the same shape. Once you've added in your shapes, now we're going to add 3 types of lines. And we've done many different types of lines already. So I might do a nice zigzag line, and it can go through your shapes. Think about what type of line you might want. I also enjoy some curly shapes. And you'll notice I'm making this go all the way across my paper. I'm trying to use as much of my paper as I can. And for my last shape, I might do that same diagonal. There you go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our watercolors or your markers in order to color. If you don't have watercolors at home, what you can do is get a piece of plastic. It could be a plastic bag for, any type of plastic bag that you have. And then you need a paintbrush. If you don't have a paintbrush, you can do this also with a Q-tip. Otherwise, you can just color all of this with markers or crayons. But if you do have a paintbrush, but not any of the watercolor paints, using a marker, you can actually create your own watercolor paints. So here, you'll see if I put a lot of the marker down, I can then use my cup of water, and I'm going to get my marker wet because we want to wake it up. And then I can paint with my marker on my paper. So this is a nice way that you can actually mix colors. It wipes off nice and clean, and you can use this over and over again. Aluminum foil does the same thing, so you can also use that. But for those that are in class with me, or if you have watercolor at home, I want to show you how to use them. When we use watercolors, we're going to open this up, and you'll notice that I have our warm colors and I have our cool colors. Watercolor is unique and different because it's watercolor paints that has water in order to wake it up. So if it doesn't have water, you'll notice that the paint is really dry. And sometimes I'll have friends say, I don't have enough paint, it looks empty because it's way down here. Well, we need to wake up our paints, and the way to wake it up is to add water. So you'll notice whenever I use watercolor, I'm going to actually give it a little bit of a puddle inside these little watercolor trays, and I'm going to wake up those waters, the watercolor color. It might take it a little bit, but it does wake up. So the next thing is whenever you use watercolor, you want to use ballerina toes. So we don't want to take our paintbrush and squish it and go like this, because then we're going to have a bad hair day on our poor paintbrush. We want to pretend we're painting with ballerina toes, just the top, very lightly with our paintbrush. It's going to be nice and gentle. So this way we're not squishing our paintbrush on the paper or in the paint. We're just gently grabbing it. You'll notice that now that I have a drop of water in here, I can just touch it. And now the little puddle is on my paintbrush, and look how much blue there is. That's a lot of blue. So I can paint with this. You'll notice if I go in and I grab some more water, I can spread my paint even more. But maybe it's too light of a blue for me. I can go in and just touch it again, and I can paint over it. And you can start making more colors on here. Another fun thing with watercolor is if you want to mix some colors, I can put some water on my paper like this. I still have some blue on it. And I'm going to just dip a little green and I can touch it. And look at the cool blending that I can make, and like fireworks as it goes over it. I can grab a little bit more, and you can see how it just goes over with all of that water and makes a really cool effect. So my challenge for you is, as you're painting this, I want you to take your time, and every time you get into a new type of shape, change the color. So remember, if you're painting, I want to see if I could show you a dry paint. My paintbrush is really wet. But if it's really dry, because I woke everything up so well, if it gets really dry, you'll notice that it starts leaving lines. And what I want you to do is make sure you get more water and go over your paint, and you can spread it. So take your time painting, take your time adding lots of color, and I can't wait to see what you create.